Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Wednesday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We appreciate you joining the program today. Got a good little hour here for you talking sports. We're going to kick it off here shortly, and we're going to be joined by John Cornell, JC, talking what's going on in the sports world. Second portion of the show, we'll be joined by Richard Cross from the SEC Network and ESPN, also part of the Ole Miss Rebel Radio Network, getting us geared up for the Ole Miss Rebels, kicking them off at noon on Saturday. But first, let's go to the Tight Number Hotline, and we're joined by our good friend, JC. Good morning, JC. How are you?
Hey, QB. Good morning. Happy Wednesday to you. Beautiful weather. Been enjoying it. And, a big week prior to a huge weekend for us here in SEC country. I'm very excited about the weekend, and I'm really excited about all of the playoffs that are going on in professional sports with baseball and, of course, the Stanley Cup Finals. I've got sunshine's coming out here. We've got today golf, and then that's followed by immediately after that, I have to be rushed off by helicopter to the tennis complex here and get ready for a huge match tonight against the boys from Westside Park. So big, lots of activities here, lots of athletics for me today, QB. So I'm getting myself mentally prepared.
World-class athlete, world-class. JC, so some breaking news yesterday. And there were word, Billy Donovan is now the head basketball coach of the Chicago Bulls, which has one of the worst damn rosters in the NBA.
And he's going to be living in Chicago of all places. So that's a surprise to me. I guess, that is an iconic brand, the Bulls. But I really don't know what he's got there. I don't know what he sees in the job, frankly. But
I think a lot of it. I mean,
probably build something.
Yeah, but it's a great city. Has a lot of tradition, obviously, with the Bulls. I think his son was part of the deal that's going to be Billy Jr. is going to be on the coaching staff. I think that had something to do with it. But, a lot of people had talked about him maybe taking over the 76ers, which has a lot of talent. Bulls don't have much talent, so we'll see. But, Billy wasn't going to sit out. He wanted to coach, and I think he's the general manager as well. I'm not 100% sure on all that.
There had to be an inducement to go there. There had to be a reason why he really wanted to be in Chicago. I mean, that just came out of nowhere, obviously. So, I understand that. I heard about the 76ers rumor as well. Better players there for sure. But maybe he can build something in Chicago. We'll see how they do.
Yep. Also yesterday,
go ahead.
The day before, Deion Sanders is now your new head football coach of the Jackson State Tigers. That's gonna be very interesting because I don't know. I have some friends that have coached against him. He's been a kind of like what I did for years as a volunteer offensive coordinator, where his son played, and it was a mess. From basically what my friends who were the opponents against him said, that it was a mess. So I hope he has a good base of hiring coaches that have coached and have recruited. But, hey, it's good publicity for the SWAC, for Jackson State. I'm not sure how they're paying him because we all know those conferences are hurting for money. But your thoughts on Deion being the coach of the Tigers?
Well, I tell you, when you're recruiting players and you're a couple of parents who have a kid that's marginally talented enough to go to either a huge FBS school or stay down at the FCS level, and you decide because of academics or whatever that he's going to be playing in the FCS level, and then prime time comes rolling up to your front yard and walks into your house, that has to mean something as far as, wow, there's some real celebrity value here. And, man, it would be fun to play for a Hall of Fame lockdown cornerback, one of the greatest players to ever set foot on a football field. And maybe I would consider going to Jackson State if I had the chance to do that, and if he offered a scholarship to go there, or a deal to come to Jackson, Mississippi. So obviously, I guess it would be very important for the school to have somebody like that represent them, and to have somebody like that go and take the Jackson State message on the road in a place like Mississippi, where not all these good athletes are found, and not all of them get an opportunity, and they become developed and end up being superstars. So a lot of great players came from that state, as you well know, and you always remind me. And certainly per capita, that state has pushed out as many NFL Hall of Famers and NFL players as any other in America. So there's a hunting ground for him to go find players, and hopefully that will energize that program. Because it is at that level of football, it is a historical it's a traditional power. It's a team that everybody's heard of, everybody knows, and had one of the greatest players of all time come from there. So I think that it's a good move for them. What do they have to lose, really? I mean, and why wouldn't they do something to shake it up?
What I don't understand is how they affording Dion. Who knows what they're paying him? JC, their players right now. But listen, their players are not even on campus.
I know.
They told them to stay home because they couldn't afford them to go to the dorms.
Well, so Dion can fundraise. I mean, a guy like that can attract money to the school.
I understand it, but I'm talking about right now. They're supposed to be playing games starting in the spring. Word is he's not going to show up on campus until February, and they're supposed to kick off at the end of February. So there's so much uncertainty with this deal because most of their athletes are still at their hometowns scattered around the country because they can't afford to put them in dorms.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough, but I'm sure it's no different for all of their competitive schools as well. And so they're all playing on the same field. At least this team.
I don't know about that. I want to say Bethune-Cookman, who's now going to be in the SWAC, their kids are on campus. I think FAMU's kids. So I don't know. I just think it's a very odd deal. I hope it works out. I got a bad feeling it's not. But
they're not going to cancel the football program. They got to do something, right? So this is a move that's going to at least get some energy behind the program and maybe some notoriety, maybe get some marketing value to it, and eventually the kids are going to come back. And I understand every point you're making, and some schools are different than others. Certainly in the SEC, it's different than it is in the Pac-12 or the Big Ten. Things are just different this year. It's a kind of a one-off year. But everything still counts the same. And what I'm excited about is that this Saturday, we're going to have a race to see who plays in the SEC championship game on December the 19th. That's what we know. We also know that Notre Dame and Wake Forest have canceled their football game because of the coronavirus. We also know that 48,000 students in America have been tested for the coronavirus, and 2 have passed away. That's too many. True. But that number is an infant.
2 passed away or 2 were hospitalized?
2 I'm sorry, hospitalized. Did I say passed away? I beg your pardon. They were hospitalized. But the coronavirus deaths are virtually non-existent. And 2 were hospitalized. And when you take 2 and divide it into 48,000, that's significant. So, or it's not significant, I should say. It's too bad for those 2 kids, but still they're canceling the game between Notre Dame and Wake Forest. So there's still a lot of question marks and uncertainty, I guess is the point I'm trying to make, as we go forward, knowing that we do have dates in place for football and college football. And Saturday, the Florida Gators will be on the field in Oxford, Mississippi. That's what we know, and at least we can go with that right now. There will be other games in the conference that are going to be interesting. The first week in the SEC doesn't have any traditional matchups, but it's great that they're finally playing, and hopefully week 2 through week 10 will be tremendous for this conference and have very few hang-ups and disappointments as we go through a very atypical football season.
Yep, we're speaking with JC on the Titan MR hotline. We'll be joined by Richard Cross from the Ole Miss Radio Network and the SEC Network. About 7:20, 7:30, or 8:20, 8:30. Got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. It comes from Russell. Russell wants to know what's there to do in Oxford. There's a lot. There's normally a lot of things to do in Oxford, but it's going to be different. There is not going to be any tailgating, from what I understand. The Grove is just going to be a nice place to walk through, look at trees and grass. You're not going to have it like packed table to table, chandelier to chandelier.
The
But you can go to the
scenery,
downtown square in Oxford, which is pretty cool. There's some cool little places there. I don't know if they're open. I don't know how it all is working there. But it's a shame because Ole Miss is not on the Gator schedule very often, especially in Oxford. And this is a trip that it's a cool place to go watch a game. It's a cool place to tailgate, and fans aren't going to be able to do it. We only get 500 tickets. JC, did you know that?
Yeah.
Every SEC away team gets 500 tickets, and majority of those tickets are for the player's family if they want to travel. So there's not going to be a cheering section, or there ain't going to be many people in that stadium with orange and blue on. 500 at the most.
Yeah, at the most. And this was a game that many people, I think, had plans on perhaps attending and flying into Memphis and driving down to Oxford just to see it. Like you said, it's been, since 1994, I think, since Florida visited Oxford. And I was at that game, actually. And I remember that campus vaguely. And I'll just say that it is too bad because the SEC only plays 8 games. This is a team you don't see often on the rotation. Maybe if the SEC, to a bigger point here, maybe if the SEC moves to 9 games, you will see more opportunities for a trip to Oxford, but they'll probably go back to 8. Having said that, I think at least they're playing Mississippi to start the season. Lane Kiffin is getting Florida. Sam Pittman is getting Georgia, the Arkansas coach. The Mississippi State coach, Mike Leach, is getting to go to LSU. And Eli Eli at Missouri gets to play Alabama. So the league said, hey, guys, welcome to the SEC. You're going to play the 4 favored teams in the conference to start your careers in the SEC. I find that more than just a coincidence. I just found that very interesting. And I think it's going to do you think, okay, so of those 4 coaches, who has the best chance to win, you think? Or do any
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State was what I was going to say, too. Yeah.
Mississippi State or Ole Miss. I mean, they're proven coaches. They've both been head coaches for a long time. Eli has been a head coach for a few years, but he's got a bad football team. Then Sam Pittman's going into a bad program. I think they'll be improved. But no, the Ole Miss game scares me at some point because
what scares you about it?
They're very explosive. Do you realize that Ole Miss has the fastest player in the SEC as quarterback?
Yeah. Yeah,
he's the fastest player in the SEC. He's faster than anybody on our roster.
Well, I get that, and he was as fast as anybody on LSU's roster last year too, and
he ran all over
60. True, but they also scored at will.
Well, Ole Miss's defense is their problem, but Lane has a tremendous job of scheming up people. It's a weird game to me, just because. It's his first year. I think he does a tremendous job calling plays. I think it's going to be close for a while. I think our depth and just our experience will take over because I think Ole Miss's defense is going to be horrible. But I do think it would not shock me if Mississippi State wins that game.
Well, that's really going to be interesting to watch. It's a 3:30 game, so you will be able to watch the entire Florida game. It will be finished, and you can switch right on over to Mississippi State and LSU. And me too. I mean, I have as much anticipation for that game as the Florida game, as the Alabama game, and as the Auburn-Kentucky game, because I do want to see how Mike Leach, how he gets that quarterback to perform in the first game that they are, a team. So
here's the thing about Mike Leach, JC. You got to think about this. He's put up numbers everywhere he's been, whether it's been in Kentucky as an assistant, Texas Tech as a head coach, Washington State. Where have they struggled? Where have they always struggled? Defensively, right?
Yes,
okay.
On defense.
Well, he's going to be now coaching the most athletic players he's ever had on that side of the ball. You know what I mean? And so
you can make that case.
Well, I mean, it's true. You trying to tell me Mississippi State doesn't have better athletes than Washington State and Texas Tech?
No, I mean, I get it. I think Texas Tech and Mississippi State are very similar.
I disagree 100% when it comes to the athletes. The athletes on the roster at Texas Tech would not be the same athlete at Mississippi State. They ain't even close.
Well, either way, both teams have had trouble stopping people, right? Last year, Mississippi State couldn't stop anybody, and let's see if they're better now. I honestly believe, though, that Mississippi State got him for them to be able to bring excitement to the program, put fans in the stadium, replace a guy that was a bust, and basically get more offense on their team and more points scored. You know, when Mississippi State was exciting to watch, Dan Mullen was their coach, obviously. Dak Prescott was their quarterback, and they had really good players on the offensive line. So and some pretty good players on the defensive line, one of whom is the franchise player for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. So I get it. Yeah, they got players. We'll have to find out who's going to step up for them. But I think it's kind of like with Florida, too. I really want to see who's going to step up defensively for the Gators. I want to see if the Gators can get that nasty defense again. They were pretty good last year for sure, but I want to see how good Florida is here in Dan Mullen's third season, because they've been everything that the expectation levels realistically should have been at. And now we have to exceed those expectations, and they have to compete for the East, and they will. And they will probably end up playing Georgia to see who wins to go to Atlanta, as is usually the case in the East.
Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from WrapSpot. September's your lucky month at WrapSpot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. Speaking with JC on the Titan More Hotline, we were supposed to have Coach Bobby Bowden today, folks. If you tuned in yesterday, he was a little under the weather, so we rescheduled him for next week. In the meantime, we will have Richard Cross from the SEC Network and the Ole Miss Radio Network talking Ole Miss Rebel football here momentarily.
Two other SEC teams, QB, Texas A&M is coming in rated highly, and Tennessee. I'm curious to see what Tennessee's going to offer us. They play at South Carolina. I don't know if these games now without fans in the stadium are going to have nearly as much of an advantage for the home team as they will for the team coming in. Obviously, it's going to be a different environment. But Tennessee's an interesting team to me. That's a big question mark in the East, much like what LSU is going to be like in the West with all the players that they've lost. And how is that quarterback going to play following up the greatest act the SEC has ever had at that position? So those two questions for me are going to be answered, or at least in the first half of this season, not necessarily in the first game. I think people will overreact after this first weekend like they typically do, and teams will get much better from week 1 to week 2. But Tennessee is a question mark that I think really had some impressive momentum last year, from the team that came here and was really bad to the team that finished the season to a team that won its bowl game. So
but you got to remember who they were beating. You know, they beat the Vanderbilts and those type of teams. Right. They haven't beaten anybody worth a damn.
But they were Tennessee, QB. I mean, they were a team that came in here, as you stated, one of the worst you've ever seen come into the stadium.
Right.
So the improvement was pretty impressive with the fact that they were able to win a bowl game. That team that came in September of 2019, you did not see winning a bowl game. And they won.
No, they did improve, but my point is they improved against a lot of bad football teams. And so their improvement looked like they improved.
They still played in the East, okay? They still played in the SEC East. They still beat Virginia Tech in a bowl game, I think. They beat
Indiana. They barely beat Indiana.
What's the difference? The point is they won a bowl game, and they had a winning season. And that team. So
you're a Tennessee fan now, is what you're saying?
No, I'm saying I'm going to be interested in seeing if they can continue playing well against a very marginal team like South Carolina and keep the momentum going with that quarterback, Garantano, and that coach Pruitt. Because Tennessee's the kind of program, QB, and you know this, that if they get some traction, if they get some energy behind them, if they get some success, that's a program that will be able to one day compete with Georgia and Florida. Because before it was Georgia, it was Tennessee in the SEC East that gave Florida the most competition. So
yeah, we shall see. It's an intriguing game. I think it's a toss-up. I think South Carolina and Tennessee are the same exact team.
I think Tennessee will beat them. How about that?
Okay. Well, we'll see.
We'll do some picks on Friday. Let's do some picks on Friday, QB.
Okay. Any other hockey goes back tonight. It's 1-1. Give us a quick little hockey update.
It's a very tight, close, physical, as we expected, Stanley Cup final. Tampa Bay got out to a 3-0 lead in Game 2. They needed that because Dallas scored the next 2 goals. It's really a toss-up. It's truly a toss-up. I also wanted to mention that the Braves, of course, win their 3rd straight NL East title, albeit a 60-game season. But the Atlanta Braves are a team, along with my Padres, who will hopefully beat the LA Dodgers and win the National League.
Are you a Braves fan now since they clinched the division?
Well, you see the damn tomahawk. So
Oh.
I mean, here it is. QB, open your eyes. This is the tomahawk here.
Well,
That's
I
what
see
this
that,
is.
but I mean, I can't keep up. I thought you were like the Padres or somebody.
I do. I like the Padres. They're cool. But
Who in the hell
tell you
likes the
what,
Padres?
have you been to San Diego?
Yes, I've been
Have
to
you been
San
to San
Diego,
Diego?
but that doesn't mean I'm going to like the Padres.
Well, I'll tell you what, San Diego's a lot nicer.
Do you like the
place to live
San
than
Diego Aztecs?
Chicago. Yeah,
Do you
they're
like
okay.
San Diego State Aztecs?
They're okay. I used to like the Chargers when they were San Diego, but now they're in LA. I have no need to like them anymore. But I thought they would be a good team this year, and I still think they will be. But I do think that the baseball is going to they're going to have the World Series in Texas. I think all the playoff games are going. So I see it's going to be where potentially some of these playoffs to get to Texas, they're trying to let fans in. That's what the Manfred has talked about, letting fans in for the baseball playoffs. I think that will be hopeful.
So they're having a World Series where the Rangers play?
They're going to be in the new stadium that is built right next to Jerry World. That is unbelievable, of course. What isn't unbelievable in Texas where they do things? And you're going to have Jerry World. You're going to have this brand new baseball stadium where the World Series is going to be played. You've got the entertainment complexes around that now that they didn't used to have. It's just going to be phenomenal, and I think it's the right decision to have the World Series in Texas. Yeah.
So that's 100% sure. That's the first time I've heard of that.
Yeah, look it up. See, I can bring you this information, QB. You're too busy worrying about whether or not Appalachian State's going to beat Marshall and whether or not Kent State's going to even play a season. But I'm too busy thinking.
Nobody's going to give a damn about going to having the World Series where it's not even in the team's ballpark. I mean, fans are going to have to travel to it. I just don't see it happening.
I think it's where it's at, QB. Check it out. Come back to me on Friday and let me know if I'm right or wrong.
Okay, but my point is, so they're going to treat it like a Super Bowl, thinking these fans are going to travel from the teams that are participating.
I don't know if it's about that. I think it might be just about the fact that they're not going to travel between cities of the two teams that are in the World Series.
That to me makes absolutely zero sense. They've been traveling all summer long
without fans. Fans. So I don't know. It might be that scenario where, if the Atlanta Braves play the New York Yankees, they're going to end up playing them in Texas in the World Series, just like the Tampa Bay Lightning are playing Dallas and Edmonton.
Right, but I don't understand. Help me understand why they're doing this, because this would have made more sense if they would have centralized the entire season in one location. They've been traveling all around the country. So what's it going to matter for a 7-game series if the Braves are playing the Seattle Mariners? What does it matter if they travel out to Seattle? They've been doing it for the last 3 months.
I looked it up. I read it on Twitter.
I'm asking, why do you think that is?
Because they want to play in that. They want to QB. I mean, if I were in the boardroom, I'd be able to tell you. But this is what the highlight was. The headline was, and the fact is that they're gonna play in this brand new, beautiful.
I understand that. I understand that, but it makes absolutely zero sense.
Okay.
Zero.
Well, there's a lot of things that haven't made sense in 2020, QB, as you well know.
Yeah.
Does it make sense that the Big Ten's going to play in October on the 24th instead of next weekend? I mean, they've had all of months of September that if they were going to make this decision to play football, I think they knew weeks in advance before it was announced that this is the way they were heading. This is the way they were thinking. And I just can't believe that some medical renaissance in 35 days brought about this big decision to change when they canceled the season on August the 11th. So I think there are things that are going on behind the scenes that we don't know about yet until it gets announced. And this is just one of those cases.
Yeah, we got a Facebook Live comment here brought to you by Metal Law, Where You Matter Most. Chris says they're doing a bubble during the playoffs, Shane. So when you're saying the playoffs, do you think it's just the World Series or all of the playoffs?
Well, that's the thing. I unfortunately, I couldn't tell you. I didn't read the whole thing. I just saw the headline that they're going to play the World Series in Texas.
Now if they did the entire playoffs in a bubble, I could understand. But just you're going to play the playoffs and then go to the not the Super Bowl, but the World Series. That just doesn't make sense. But if they're going to do the entire playoffs, I get it.
Yeah. Well, either way, the other. Oops, sorry about that. The other thing was that he's trying to see if fans would. he's trying to see if it's practical to allow fans to come in and watch. So
Okay, Chris,
I don't know.
thank goodness we got Chris listening because he says the entire baseball playoffs are in the bubble.
Okay, but at least you had a guy here on the show tell you that they were going to go to Texas to play this stuff.
Congratulations you letting us know that, because I was losing sleep wondering where they're going to play the World
Well,
Series.
if you would just kind of let well, never mind. We're not going to go back down that road. But yeah, it's going to be interesting either way. But whether it makes sense or not, who knows? A lot of things in 2020 don't make sense. But certainly we know that Notre Dame will not play Wake Forest this weekend. We also know that the SEC is going to start and that the Big Ten is supposedly going to start a month from now. Those are the things we know. Game 3 of the Stanley Cup is going to be played tonight. They're almost done with that. And then before you know it, they're going to start the next season. I don't know when they're going to start the next season. So
thank goodness Chris says here on Meldon Law, where you matter most here on Facebook Live, the American League is going to be played in California, the National League in Texas.
And then the World Series will be in Texas.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we got our Major League Baseball segment cleared up today.
I'm glad we got you, got you a little information, QB. It's somehow escaped your sports world that you live in. It
did. I think the playoffs start next week.
Yeah, it's coming up. So
we need to mention too. I know a lot of people are upset with the NBA, and I get it. But I watched a little bit of it last night. The Nuggets dominated the Lakers. Lakers made a little run to make it close, but that series should be 2-1 in Denver. Honestly,
it should be. And would it surprise anybody if it goes 7 games? I don't think so. And it wouldn't surprise me either to see the Celtics come back and overtake the Heat in maybe even 6 games. So I think we're heading for a Celtics-Lakers finals. But don't count those Nuggets out, man. Denver is they do not die easily. As
NBA ratings are already horrible as it is. Can you imagine if you got the Nuggets and the Heat?
Right. So I mean, without LeBron and Anthony Davis, the NBA is in dire straits. Ratings wise, this only matters if it continues year after year after year. These guys have already been paid basically. So this weird season that we're undergoing, obviously the ratings are down and there are many reasons why, but if it continues though as a part of a pattern, then they will have to make some changes because it's about money, and so certainly the ratings are not conducive to big expenditures, but that's already happened. So the NBA is not hurting, trust me on that. But if we have 3 or 4 years where ratings continue to fall at numbers like this, then there will be some changes.
We got a Facebook Live question here from Kyle, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. He wants to know who has COVID-19, Notre Dame or Wake Forest? Wasn't it Notre Dame?
I think it's the Notre Dame players. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought it was Notre Dame too.
Yeah, it's the Notre Dame players, and remember, Notre Dame played a game against South Florida last weekend, and I don't really know. Look, these kids they're out. You have to remember that if you're going to play college football, it's up to you to take personal responsibility for whether or not you're keeping the chances of you getting this at the very minimum. And it's hard for some of these kids. We've talked about this already. But
here's the thing, JC.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that these kids were out at a party at the frat house or sorority house.
No.
These kids, because nowadays about 98%, unless you're a freshman, and it depends on what school you're at, only freshman athletes have to live on dorms on campus. Yeah. Everybody else can live off campus. So who's to say you go down to Publix or you go pump gas in your scooter or you go wherever, go pick up a sub somewhere, that you don't get the virus doing that? It doesn't mean that they were out partying. You see what I'm saying?
I do. But obviously, sometimes the things like wearing a mask or getting close to somebody without a mask get forgotten. And so if you're unlucky, it could happen. The thing that's great about this, though, and I wouldn't say it's great, but the one thing that these youngsters have working for them is that this disease does not kill them. So essentially, it's the people most at risk that suffer the most from this. And it's no fun. And we've got some friends who are our age who have gotten it, but they recovered within a week. Okay, they didn't go to the hospital. They didn't need a ventilator. They had the flu. and I'm not minimizing the severity of this at all, but comorbidities are so much a part of the mortality of this flu, probably as much as anything we've had. So college kids are not a high risk demographic. They just aren't. They may get it, but they're not going to die from it, and they will recover relatively soon, and probably quicker than if they had the regular seasonal flu. We already know this. We've talked about it for months. The point is that these college sports wouldn't be playing if this was that. If it was something that had a real chance of severely crippling somebody.
Let me ask you this, JC, before we let you go, and we're going to be joined by Richard Cross from the Ole Miss Radio Network here soon. Your thoughts? The NFL fined about 4 or 5 coaches $100,000 each, and each team $250,000 for not wearing their mask. What's crazy is so many players and administrators have been tested multiple times during a game. During the game week. Why does it matter if they wear their mask during the game if everybody's been tested?
So, QB, you've been a coach both in the booth and on the sideline. You know all about watching coaches as a player on the sideline. It is literally impossible to scream and shout and get your point across, especially if you're an animated coach or if you're somebody with a lot of energy, to have a mask on and be effective. Now, some deadhead like Mike McCarthy could probably get away with it, but John Gruden, Kyle Shanahan, these guys are not going to be able to keep this thing going. And the NFL franchise is probably the safest place in all of sports, other than maybe those bubbles in hockey and basketball, for you to be if you're scared of the coronavirus. So I think that it is just more about show. The fact that John Gruden is being fined whatever $250,000, I don't think he could not care. Probably doesn't care less, and it's not going to be any different for him when the Raiders play this weekend's game than it was when they played the Saints at home, because he's still going to coach. These coaches are still going to coach mask or not mask, and sometimes that damn thing just doesn't stay on you when you're belting out plays or instructions or lineup changes or whatever you're doing on the sideline. You know as well as I do, QB, it's virtually impossible to keep your mouth shut and try to coach a football game. You couldn't do it, and I don't know.
I get all that. I'm just saying, as much as they are tested, there's no fans in the stands. Anybody that's on that field has been tested multiple times. I'm curious.
It's all show.
I understand why they want them to wear the mask. I get that point, but if everybody, because they're almost in their own little bubble anyway.
They are. Yeah, they totally are. So I don't know. I mean, I just think it's more of it's placating the mask crowd. And look, masks are important to defeating this disease. I think we've all come to understand that. I'm not denying it. But when it comes to coaching a football game, when you're in an environment with players who are negative and who do not have it and who do not carry it or whatever the test shows, I don't see the point. I really don't. I don't see the point of some coaches and some players wearing it and some coaches and some players not wearing it. I don't see where there's any consistency there.
It's going to be interesting to see, the SEC, that's part of, as a coaching staff on the sidelines. Players have to have their mask on. It's going to be interesting to see how many of them do it this weekend. It's hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to be real. Think about Ed Orgeron wearing a mask. That thing's it's going to. I guarantee you. You got to give me over/under numbers on the many times that they have to adjust their mask, which, by the way, is not a great thing if you're touching your face with your hands, constantly trying to get this mask right because you're trying to scream out plays or you're trying to scream out instructions or lineups or whatever you're doing as a coach on the sideline. It's very impractical. It's extremely difficult for these guys. And I think you're going to see a lot of coaches having them down there by their chin like a damn chin strap. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. They're wearing big chin straps because they have to talk. But like I said, guys like Mike McCarthy and maybe Andy Reid, who don't say much anyway, except Andy Reid has the shield.
Yeah, he's got the so he's like a fireman, right? He's got red on.
He's like a welding shield.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, JC. Well, good luck at your golf match and your tennis match. I'm sure you're going to be playing some serious athletes. So good luck.
Yes, I will, and I'll let you know Friday. Maybe we should do our picks so I can start showing you my prominence in.
All right, that's JC. Join us on the Titan MR hotline at Center State Bank. We put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida, and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. When we come back, hopefully we'll be joined by Richard Cross from the Ole Miss Radio Network. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Hey Gator Nation, this is your former head ball coach Steve Spurrier. Check out our show, Inside the Huddle with Shane Matthews and Steve Russell, every Tuesday during football season on 8:50 a.m. and 98.1 FM WRUF at 10 o'clock a.m.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
GTS Handyman Services, whether you need carpet cleaning or expert painting in Gainesville, they are the team to hire.
Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Rap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Radware, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points, where the Gators come to celebrate, with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming spring of 2021, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. Wednesday's show here. We're hoping to get Richard Cross. Something must have come up, but I'm sure he'll call in here shortly. But we're going to keep JC on with us until Richard tunes in. JC,
Yeah.
So
back.
did you know that Joe Tessitore and your buddy Greg McElroy are doing our game this week?
I'm not. See, and listen, I know Greg won the 2009. Look at that, yawn. 2009 national title with Alabama against Texas, and certainly he is an Alabama quarterback that I guess loyal Alabama fans will always thank for being so good. But when I listen to him broadcast, there's just something about him. I haven't been able to put my finger on it, but he doesn't really get me that jazzed up. I do think Joe Tessitore is one of the best in the business. I do like him. I like Jesse Palmer a lot. I like Kirk and Chris, but I like McFarland sometimes. But Greg McElroy just doesn't seem to. He doesn't get. I mean, look. He's made a career for himself in the broadcasting business, but as a guy who's doing color, I think of him more as a guy who could be doing an ACC game. You know what I mean? Even though he played in the SEC, maybe he should be doing that Wake Forest Duke game. Because I just don't get excited when I hear Greg McElroy. Nothing against Greg, but I just think he's just kind of boring.
So, JC, I was gonna ask you this: out of all the Power 5 hirings in 2018, the Power 5 coaches that were hired in 2018, who do you think has the best overall record?
Oh well, I don't see it being any of the guys in the SEC West. You mean nationwide?
I'm talking about
across
nationally.
the country?
Yes.
Yeah, nationally. Yeah, I don't see it being either one of those four guys in the SEC West or in the SEC. Gosh, I'd have to say perhaps. Well, you got me here. You kind of got me on the spot.
Okay, well, Sarah, I'm going to tell you. So I'm going to run.
I'll tell you. Well, I'll say one. I've got one. The fella at Michigan State who came from Colorado. I like him. Mel Tucker, I think's his name. Tucker.
You did not understand the question. The question was, out of the hirings of the Power 5 coaches in 2018, who has the most wins? 2018.
Oh, who? Okay, I thought you were asking me who would get the most wins as a new coach. I'm sorry. Who has the most wins since? Oh, Dan Mullen.
Well, he's tied with Mario Cristobal from Oregon. But listen to all these
you
coaches.
didn't tell me it would be a tie. You just said who would do it. I got one of them.
Well, here's what's interesting. I'm going to run down all the coaches that were hired at Power 5 schools in 2018, and listen to these guys. Okay, Coach Mullen's 21-5. Mario Cristobal's 21-6. They played an extra game somehow. Herm Edwards is 15-11. Jimbo is 17-9. Scott Frost is 9-15. Chip Kelly is 7-17. Matt Luke, who's now fired, was 9-15. Joe Moorhead, who was fired, 14-12. Chad Morris at Arkansas was fired. He was 4-18.
Yeah.
Jerry Pruitt is 13-12. Jonathan Smith at Oregon, he's 7-17. Kevin Sumlin is 9-15 at Arizona, and Willie Taggart, who's fired, was 9-12.
Well, it's amazing that Chad Morris, with those 4 wins, not one of them was a conference game. And that is the biggest surprise to me of all of it, because he was pretty good at SMU and they had success there, but he couldn't win an SEC game in 2 years at Arkansas. That just shows you how far that program fell once they got rid of the big fella from Wisconsin, Brett Bielema. So I don't know. It's hard for me to understand how that could be with an SEC program, but that's the most surprising number of all of that as far as I'm concerned. The other one would be how successful Herm Edwards has done at a place like Arizona State. I didn't see that happening as well. And they've got some very notable wins against some, traditionally powerful teams in that league like USC and I think they even may have beaten one of the Oregon teams, or maybe it was one of the Washington teams. But certainly I think Jeremy Pruitt is heading and trending in the right direction. And going back to the way I didn't answer that question, of the new coaches coming in this year, I think one of the more successful ones could be Mel Tucker at Michigan State.
You think so, huh?
Well, I just think, granted, now look, you look at the Big Ten, and the East is far superior than the West. So certainly it's harder for them to win, but I think he's pretty good because he was able to win at Colorado. So, I mean, that's not an easy thing. Had some very successful games at Colorado where they were literally coming from the bottom. So if you can win at Colorado, you can get better players at a place like Michigan State. Maybe you can surprise some teams and win. Remember, Michigan State is a team that went to the college football playoffs once. D'Antonio did a pretty good job until he quit on them, and he did quit on them. So I think Michigan State, I think Mel Tucker will get some players up there, and they'll compete with the Penn States and the Ohio States. It's amazing to me, though, isn't it, how Nebraska gets stuck with road games on this new scheduling at Ohio State and at Penn State. Now, granted, there won't be any fans in there that will make the environment anything like it should be or would be normally, but it's funny to me how the Big Ten Conference stuck it to Nebraska with games at Penn State, crossover games at Penn State, at Ohio State to start the season. So Nebraska being, of course, one of the more vocal teams in opposition of the decision by the conference on August 11th to cancel their season. So I found that more than just a coincidence, if you ask me.
JC, we got a text here on the text line. It's from Larry. Larry wants to know, do you think Bryce Young will eventually be the starting quarterback at Alabama this year?
No, I don't, because I think they believe in Mac Jones, and I don't think Mac Jones is that bad of a quarterback. I think Mac Jones more than surpassed their expectations in the limited time he was able to play last year. I don't think he expected to play last year, but once Tua went down, it was him or nobody, and he came through in the bowl game. He played well against Auburn, had some bad breaks go against him, but well enough for that team to win that game, and that was not one of Alabama's best teams, in spite of the fact that they still won 10 games, and their bowl game. So I think Mac Jones will be the guy unless he gets hurt, and I think Bryce Young is their future. There's no doubt about it. That kid will play. He'll play plenty, I think. He may even play some this weekend against Missouri if they get a big lead. But Mac Jones will be the starter at Alabama until he plays his way out of that position, and I don't think he will.
I think Mac's going to play well, but I do think Bryce Young is going to play a lot this year. A lot.
I agree with that.
At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do a mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840.
Yeah. Well,
What were you saying, JC?
no, I was just going to say, Alabama is a team that, along with Georgia and Florida, they have the expectations of going all the way, right? So it's going to be fun for me as an Alabama fan and graduate and alumni and booster and everything else to see if this team has improved on defense, because by God, that was one of the worst defenses I've seen them put on the field in years. And, of course, injuries had a lot to do with that. So they're going to have a lot of guys coming back at Alabama that didn't play last year, Dylan Moses being one of them, their big linebacker and their leader who calls the plays on defense. So that, to me, will be very interesting to watch how much better Alabama's defense is this year with a new coordinator and everything.
We got a Facebook Live comment here brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. Wade says, "Damn it, it's time for work. I hate how work gets in the way of this podcast." JC, Wade's fan. He's a big fan of yours, I guess.
Well, look, I mean, we both have big fans, right, QB? I mean, you're the stalwart of the show. You kept it going through the pandemic. Everybody applauds you at your ability to interview everything, including a tree, if you had to.
I can do it.
This was a successful summer in spite of all of the difficulties. You know what they say, you're a coach. They say how you handle adversity is going to determine whether or not you're a successful program, because everybody's happy when things are going well. Everybody's excited when things are all good and hunky-dory. It's when things get a little tricky and a little sticky that will show whether or not you're a winner. So this podcast is clearly a winner. And certainly you've been a winner keeping this thing going with all of the great interviews you've had throughout the summer. It's been fun to watch. It's been great to hear the old stories from former Gators like yourself. But it's also been great to hear from players who weren't former Gators and for people who are just part of the sports landscape. And with all of the uncertainties that we had regarding football, remember, we didn't know anything until pretty much the beginning of August, and the ACC came out and said, we're playing. Literally 24 hours later, the SEC came back and said, we're playing. And so that's a hard bridge. That's a hard bridge to cross when you don't know when the end of the bridge gets there. But I think that's when things really started to go. And finally, we are 6 weeks into this since they announced it, and we're about to see games. And if you look back, QB, this has been quite a year.
Yeah, well, I think whoever wins the national title this year should be saluted like no other year. The stuff the athletes and coaches are having to go through is just mind-boggling to me. We got another Facebook Live question here from Steven, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. He wants to know, how do y'all see the Ole Miss and Florida game going? Here are my thoughts on that, and we'll talk more about it on Friday as well. It's an intriguing game because, Ole Miss, they're going to be pumped. First game in the Lane Kiffin era. They're coming out in these brand new powder blue uniforms they've never worn. Not that matters how you play, but I'm anxious to see what it's going to be like for these SEC games, because SEC football, it just means more, right? It means more to the fans, the players, but the atmosphere is going to be so much different. Who is going to get the energy? How are the players going to feed off the energy that they used to feed off from the crowd? They're going to have to make that energy themselves.
True.
The way I see the Ole Miss Florida game going is, I think it's going to be, hopefully it won't be too sloppy at the beginning, but it could be. I think Lane will have some tricks up his sleeve. I think we'll pull away eventually late in the third or fourth quarter, but I think it's going to be a pretty good football game. I really do.
Kyle Trask, to me, is the focal point, I think, because, can he continue the success that he finished with after that Orange Bowl game? LaMichael Pirine will not be there. And who else is going to take over some of these supporting roles for Kyle Trask? Because every good quarterback, and you've said this before, needs great players around him to really be at his very best. And so these supporting players are going to be fun to watch who emerges at Florida. I also mentioned, like I said earlier in the show, I want to see Florida get back to that nasty defense. I thought they were good last year, but I want to see those Florida defenses from the past come back on this team and really show up. And I think Ole Miss will challenge them. Lane Kiffin could draw up some plays. You know this. He's been successful calling plays against Florida when he was at Alabama. He's been successful calling plays against a lot of teams. So it's going to be fun to see. This is a great matchup. I love the way the schedule makers made this the first game for both of these teams, because I think Lane Kiffin's excited to play against a team he recruited against in the state of Florida, and I think Florida's excited to take a trip to a place that they haven't been to in 17 years or so, and it's going to be a real exciting day, man. I know it's 12 o'clock, but without fans there and without tailgating, who cares, right? I mean, that's not part of the dynamic in college football this year. We're not going to have to worry about.
It's not going to matter to us guys watching on TV because we're not going to be there experiencing.
No, but it's right. But 12 o'clock games, people who liked to plan their weekends around football and who liked to travel to places to watch games and who love tailgating as much a part of their experience as the game itself. And believe me, there's a lot of people like that. 12 o'clock was awful. It was awful, especially for teams in the Central Time Zone. It was even worse. So that used to be a problem. It won't be now. Because all of that's been taken away. But at least we have the game, and that is, of course, the focal point of the entire activity, right? So that's what matters most, and that's what we're going to be able to still enjoy, whether it's at 12 o'clock or 3:30 or 7:30.
Well, JC, we appreciate you joining us today, my man. We're going to take our second time out here, come back, and then wrap this joker up. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios.
This is Shane Matthews. Thank you for listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. You can also check me out on Inside the Huddle with Steve Russell and the head ball coach Steve Spurrier. Tune in every Tuesday during football season on WRUF 98.1 FM, 8:50 a.m. at 10 o'clock in the morning, or find us on your favorite podcast platform.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. GTS Handyman Services, whether you need carpet cleaning or expert painting in Gainesville, they are the team to hire. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe,
Big Mills Cheesesteaks,
MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Aver and Smith Personal Injury Attorneys, Orange Theory Fitness, PRP Regeneration Specialist, and Dowling Signs.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. This Day in Sports is brought to you by GTS, Gainesville's premier maintenance company. Whether you need carpet cleaning or expert painting, fences mended, or any handyman services, call GTS at 352-363-6622. In 2018, Drew Brees breaks Brett Favre's record for the most completions in NFL history with 6,300 completions. Saints beat the Falcons 43-37. That's This Day in Sports, brought to you by GTS, Gainesville's premier maintenance company. I want to thank JC for joining us. Unfortunately, we couldn't hook up with our man Richard Cross from the Ole Miss Radio Network and ESPN Network, but we'll get him maybe before the week's out. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, folks. We got Brent Beard, have a lot of good college info for you. Also, our Baker Sporting Goods high school roundup with some local high school coaches talking about their games on Friday night. Make sure you like us, follow us on Facebook Live, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Today's show is a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. Be safe out there, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.